Hello and welcome to the JB&M Sports Fanatic channel. Thank you for deciding to stop by my video as I go through the remaining slate of games for the Week 15 NFL games. I'm definitely excited to go through some of these matchups as they will have playoff implications moving forward. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in and discuss. So the first game that we're going to discuss is the 4-9 Houston Texans versus the 9-4 Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are entering this game winning four of their last five games. Um, they've been the only team this season that has been favored in every game that they've played. The Colts have won six of their last 10 games against the Houston Texans. Five of the last six games in this series has been decided by one score or less. Um, the Colts are currently second in the AFC South standings, although they have the same record as the Tennessee Titans. The Titans own the tiebreaker in that scenario, while the Houston Texans are currently sitting third, just above the Jaguars, who have no intention of competing whatsoever. So the first game that we're going to discuss will be the Texans that are coming in this game at 4-9 and currently fourth place in the division in the AFC South against the second place Indianapolis Colts, who have the same record as the Titans, but the Titans own the tiebreaker, so the Colts are currently second in the AFC South. The Colts are coming into this pretty hot. They've won four of their last five games, and they're the only team this season that has entered into every single game as the favorite. Um, and so against the Houston Texans, they've won six of their last 10, and five of their last six games have all been decided by one possession. So it's usually going to be a fight down to the end, which is pretty good. Philip Rivers is entering with a QBR of 65. Jonathan Taylor is coming off his season high 150 yards and two touchdowns, while T.Y. Hilton has been really coming to alive the last couple of weeks after a slow start. His season high eight receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown last week. So he's finally got that going for him. The Houston Texans now, Deshaun Watson has a QBR of 71.1. J.J. Watt has five sacks on the season. It's not really J.J. Watt type of numbers, but I'm sure Madden's going to keep him at a 99 for the remainder of his career, just out of respect. David Johnson, he had COVID last week. He's dealing with an ankle injury this week, and so if we get some production out of him this week, I'm sure we'll be thankful for that. And if not, that's kind of what comes with David Johnson, it seems. But the Houston Texans have been okay. Duke Johnson has had his moments, so definitely wouldn't be much of a drop off if he does not play. The Indianapolis Colts rank ninth offensively, averaging 28.6 points per game, and their defense is 12th, according to Pro Football Focus. Um, the Texans have the 18th ranked offense, averaging 22.7 points per game. The defense ranks 25th, giving up 25 passing touchdowns to only generating three interceptions on the season. Deshaun Watson is averaging the most yards per attempted pass at 8.7, according to NFL.com. And Deshaun Watson this season, he has a 12-0 touchdown to interception ratio in his last five road games. Um, the Indianapolis Colts have the ninth ranked offense, averaging 28.6 points per game, and their defense ranks 12th according to Pro Football Focus. The Houston Texans have the 18th ranked offense, averaging 22.7 points per game, and their defense ranks 25th, giving up 25 passing touchdowns and only generating three interceptions. So, yeah, so I think this is going to be another close game in this matchup like it was 2 weeks ago, but I think they're going to split. I've got the Houston Texans in the upset 24-22. So for this game, we have the Detroit Lions are entering at 5-8, and the Tennessee Titans are 9-4. So the Tennessee Titans are favored to win this game, as they should be. They've won three of their last four games, scoring over 30 points in the last four contests. They're currently first place in the AFC South Division standings as they hold the tiebreaker over the Indianapolis Colts. Derrick Henry leads the league in rushing yards with 1,532, and he is tied for first place with 14 rushing touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill has a QBR of 76.6 on the season, while AJ Brown has 9 touchdowns in the 11 games that he has played. For the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford comes into this game with a QBR of 65.3, but he does not have his top target, Kenny Holiday, who reached 1,000 yards receiving last season for this contest. Injuries have just been very tough for Detroit, as well as a lot of teams. Um, but Matthew Stafford is deciding to suit up despite his rib injury, and he's going to play through it. So you may not have Kenny Galladay for this game, but you will have Matt Stafford. Um, Derrick Henry leads all running backs in carries this season with 297 carry with 297 attempts. The Lions have the 20th ranked offense, averaging 23.8 points per game, and the Detroit Lions also have the 29th worst defense. The Tennessee Titans have the third ranked offense, averaging 30 points per game, and they have the 21st ranked defense. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of this chirping at the referee for holding to try to get some type of help to stop Derrick Henry. Definitely expect some of that. Yeah, I think this game is not really going to be all that close. I've got the Titans beating the Lions 31-20. Um, I think Detroit has scored late in the game to make it look closer, but I think Tennessee will have full control of this. Expect Derrick Henry to have about 150 yards in this game. The next matchup we will discuss is the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. Both teams enter this game at 6-7, although the Minnesota Vikings have the edge, so they're second in the NFC North over the third place Chicago Bears and trailing the Green Bay Packers for first place. Both teams understand what a loss could do to their season as they're just holding on to try to remain in this playoff picture past this week. And a loss could really, really hurt their chances of making the postseason. It would not technically eliminate them, but you're really just holding on to the odds you have to win the lottery at this point. So they understand what this game means. The Vikings enter this game led by Dalvin Cook, who's tied for the most rushing touchdowns with 14 this season, and he's the second leading rusher with 1,352 yards, averaging 5 yards per carry. Kirk Cousins has a QBR of 61.5, and he has his two-star receivers in Justin Jefferson, who has over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns as a rookie, as well as Adam Thielen, who has his moments as well. Bears have David Montgomery, who's averaging 4.5 yards per carry, 760 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns. One of their bright spots this season has been Allen Robinson, who has 86 receptions for 1,027 yards and 6 touchdowns on the season. Mitchell Trubisky, since they've implemented him back into the starting lineup, the Bears have seen an increase in their scoring as they've scored more than 25 points per game since he's been reinstated. And each time the score total just increases higher than the last time. He has a QBR of 52.7 on the season. Um, the Bears have the 28th ranked offense, averaging 21.7 points per game, and their defense ranks ninth. The Vikings come into this game ranked seventh offensively, averaging 25.6 points per game, and defense ranks 24th. I think this is going to be a close game, but I think Dalvin Cook is going to have more of an impact than he did the first time around. And so I've got the Vikings winning this game 24-16. The next game that we're going to talk about is the Seahawks and the Washington football team. The Seahawks come into this game at 9-4, while the Washington football team is 6-7. The Washington football team is currently first in their division, while the Seahawks are second, as the Rams have the tiebreaker in their division, the NFC West. Russell Wilson has a QBR of 71.8 on the season, while DK Metcalf has 69 receptions for over 1,180 yards and 10 receiving touchdowns on the year. Chris Carson has 505 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns in 9 games. For the Washington football team, Antonio Gibson averages 4.7 yards per carry and has 659 yards on the season. Terry McLaurin has been targeted 114 times, which is a team high, and has 1,001 yards receiving, while Alex Smith had 300 yards passing a game in 2 of the last 3 games that he's played. It's important to take note that Alex Smith is not going to be playing this game. It's going to be Dwayne Haskins, as Alex Smith is nursing a calf injury. And so and Antonio Gibson is listed as doubtful in this game as well. So the Washington football team offense is going to look very different this week, which is not the perfect time considering that they need to defend first place in their division. The Seahawks have the sixth ranked offense, averaging 30.2 points per game, and their defense ranks 18th. The Washington football team is ranked 30th offensively, averaging 22.1 points per game, but their defense ranks 6th. I think that this game will be somewhat close, but the Washington football team is going to struggle to score. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dwayne Haskins and his abilities, but he's turned the ball over quite a few times, and I just think that they're not going to be able to generate enough on the ground, especially if Antonio Gibson's not going to play. So I've got the Seahawks winning 17-9. So the next game we're going to discuss is the New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins enter this matchup as the favorite over the Patriots, which feels really weird saying. They're currently second in the AFC East, just over the Patriots, who are third in the standings. Patriots have won 6 of their last 10 games in this series, but have only won 2 of their last 7 games at Miami. Some of the key players for the Patriots in this matchup is going to be Cam Newton, who has a QBR of 46.5, Damian Harris, who has 691 yards on the season, averaging 5 yards per carry, J.C. Jackson, who has 7 interceptions this season. It's been a nice, pleasant surprise. The key player for the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, has a QBR of 56.9. Miles Gaskins has 477 yards rushing in 8 games and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Parker has 677 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. It's important to take note that Damian Harris will not be playing in this game, so expect Sony Michel to get the load of carries. Him and Cam Newton, who has 11 rushing touchdowns on this season. So I'm expecting for the ground game to still be effective in this game. The Dolphins, defensively, they have the second most interceptions on defense. Well, I guess it's a good thing that we don't really pass the ball in this game, so that will not matter. But they have a top 5 defense overall. Bill Belichick is 21-5 in his career since joining the Patriots against rookie quarterbacks. I've got the Patriots winning this one 20-14. At the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to the fact that Tua's going to make a mistake that's going to cost Miami and not be able to take advantage of his opportunities against Bill Belichick's defense. So Patriots 20-14. The next game that we're going to talk about is the 1-12 Jaguars and the 8-5 Baltimore Ravens. This game has the possibility of a little bit of rain in the morning, so it might be a little on the wet side, which will be more turnovers, I'd assume. The Ravens enter this game as pretty big favorites, but the Ravens currently find themselves at third place in the in the AFC North, just outside the playoffs, looking in while the Jags are sitting in last place of the AFC South. Um, some key players for the Jaguars. James Robinson, he's been a really nice pickup. I know because I picked him up in my fantasy league. I'm at the beginning of the season, so he was definitely heaven sent, especially since I had Saquon and Saquon went down. So definitely a great impact player. He's got 1,035 yards in the season, seven touchdowns, rushing, just an impact player all around. And for the Baltimore Ravens, it ends with Lamar Jackson on offense. He has a QBR of 71.5. Mark Andrews also has 532 yards receiving and six touchdowns, while Gus Edwards has 536 yards and seven touchdowns. Who would have guessed at the beginning of the season we would be talking about Gus Edwards in the backfield for Baltimore? That's 2020 for you. The Ravens have lost two of their last five games, but they are on a two-game win streak. So definitely looking to keep that going in this one, and they shouldn't have much difficulty. So I've definitely got Baltimore winning this game, taking care of business as they're supposed to. The Jaguars, they will try to put up some kind of a fight, but the Ravens will win 34-17. The next game we're going to discuss is the 8-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the 4-9 Atlanta Falcons. The Buccaneers enter this game as the favorites and standing second in the NFC South, behind the Saints, while the Falcons have already begun to start thinking about next year as they're sitting last place. The Falcons have won six of their last 10 matchups in this series, including six of the last seven. However, this Tampa Bay team seems to be a little different than years past. Um, the Buccaneers are led by Tom Brady, who has a QBR of 70 on the season. Mike Evans, who's averaging 13.1 yards per catch and has 11 receiving touchdowns on 51 receptions. Ronald Jones has 900 rushing yards, averaging 5 yards per carry, and six rushing touchdowns on the season. Matt Ryan has a QBR of 63. Julio Jones has 771 total receiving yards, averaging 15.1 yards per catch and three touchdowns, while Calvin Ridley has 1,029 receiving yards, averaging 15.4 yards per carry and eight touchdowns. Over the last several years, the Falcons have actually won at least three of their final four games to finish out each season strong. I guess that's when you start playing for your new contract the next year. So all the motivation in the world. So, but they seem to finish the season strong. So, fun fact: Brady has never entered the playoffs as a wild card team. So this may be a first. It's looking like, as long as they don't slip up and be surprised. But I've got in this game the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win 27-24. I think Atlanta might jump out to a little bit of a lead, but then Tampa Bay is going to come storming back and win 27-24. The next game we're going to discuss is the 5-8 49ers and the 4-9 Dallas Cowboys. Both teams are coming into this matchup a little disappointed. The teams are currently dead last in their divisions, but they're surprisingly both clinging on to some type of hope at potentially being able to get in the playoffs, but it's not looking good at all, folks. At all. Um, the 49ers have Raheem Mostert, who has 453 yards rushing in 7 games, averaging 5 yards per carry. George Kittle's been on IR for who knows how long, but he had a huge game with 15 receptions, with 180 receiving yards, and a touchdown against the Eagles back in Week 4. But other than that, in a few games here and there, he hasn't had much impact this season. They've just had a lot of injuries. One of the few bright spots that they had is with Brian Ayuk, who has 660 receiving yards on four touchdown catches. The Cowboys, they lost Dak Prescott early this season, and their season never recovered from that. Ezekiel Elliott has 832 rushing yards on a season with 5 touchdowns. Amari Cooper has 80 catches for 942 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. CD Lamb has 742 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. The four of the 5 games the 49ers have won this year have been on the road. The Cowboys have started 4 different quarterbacks this season. 49ers shouldn't be too far behind. Zeke has also Zeke has only had a 100-yard rushing game once this season and has not found the end zone since their Week 5 matchup against the Giants. Oh man, this is tough. Two teams, they're both just fighting for false hope at this point, but I'm gonna go with the Cowboys to win this 20-10. I think Andy Dalton does decent enough, and the 49ers just had way too many injuries this season, so they should just pack it up for next year. The next game we're going to discuss is the Philadelphia Eagles that come in at 4-8-1, and the Arizona Cardinals that are 7-6. The Cardinals enter this game as the favorite and find themselves third place in the NFC West, but in the last slot for the NFC wild card spot. West, while the Eagles are third in the NFC East. Key players for the Eagles are Miles Sanders, who had 746 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, which is pretty impressive because I sure didn't see him that much in my fantasy league. Just saying. Jalen Hurts had 300 yards passing and 2 touchdowns in his only start last game. We'll be looking to build upon that. While Travis Fulgham has 467 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. This is going to be a matchup of two former Oklahoma Sooners at quarterback going at it, not too far apart from their time there. The Eagles do not possess a receiver that has more than 500 receiving yards on the season. And this late in the season, that tells you a lot about their passing game. In addition to that, Carson Wentz was sacked a league-high 50 times this season. That kind of tells you why he's not in there right now. Although some people think he should be, but that's a debate for another video. Yeah, this is what Carson Wentz is thinking about on that sideline. Yeah, so at the end of this game, I've got the I've got the Arizona Cardinals winning this one. I think it's going to be along the lines of 27-22. But I got the Cardinals winning this one. The Jets enter this matchup at 0-13, um, and the Rams are 9-4. The Rams are currently expected to dominate this matchup, and that's kind of common sense at this point. We all expect the Rams to come in and just run over the Jets because honestly, the Jets don't want to win. Why else do you blitz 8 guys on a Hail Mary unless you're just trying to lose against the Raiders? Um, But the Rams currently hold first place in their division, the NFC West, over the Seahawks. They own the tiebreaker, while the Jets are last place and wanting to keep last place and hopefully secure their first overall pick for next year's draft for the Trevor Lawrence sweepstake. The Jets have Sam Darnold, who has a QBR of 36.2, Frank Gore, who has 546 yards rushing on the ground and a touchdown, James Crowder, who has 510 yards receiving and five receiving touchdowns on the season. The Rams are led by Jared Goff, who has a QBR of 62.2. Cam Akers has been on the rise the last couple of weeks. Um, Cost me in my fantasy league. I didn't start him a couple of weeks ago. 528 yards on the ground for two touchdowns. Um, Cooper Cup has 79 receptions for 869 yards and three receiving touchdowns on the season. Adam Gase is doing his best to ensure that Frank Gore retires after this season. I mean, he's running this man to dust at this point. I've got the Rams winning this one. I'll say 33 to 6. Yeah, I've got the Rams winning this one 33 to 6. The next game that we're going to talk about, this is the game of the week right here. This is a very big game in terms of seeding. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming at 12-1, and the Saints are entering at 10-3 with the return of Drew Brees. Um, Both teams are sitting atop their division and looking to fight for potentially a first round bye in the playoffs. The Chiefs have clinched their division title in the AFC West and are currently on first place in the AFC. So if the playoffs started today, they would be the top seed in the AFC. The Saints have clinched the playoff berth and they're looking to clinch their division with a victory. Um, the Chiefs are led by Patrick Mahomes, who has a QBR of 84.2. Tyreek Hill has 77 receptions on the season for 1,158 yards and four receiving touchdowns. Travis Kelsey, who's having a tremendous season, has 90 receptions for 1,250 yards receiving and nine receiving touchdowns. Drew Brees, upon his return, he has a QBR of 80.1. Alvin Kamara leads the team in rushing and receiving with 1,422 all-purpose yards and 14 touchdowns overall. Taysom Hill has nine overall touchdowns this season, and the Saints went 3-1 without Drew Brees and with Taysom Hill. The Saints defense is playing the best in the league since week 9, with a negative .211 expected points added EPA allowed per play. Patrick Mahomes is on par with Aaron Rodgers with a top two QBR on the season and in that MVP discussion race. Tyreek Hill has scored 10 touchdowns since week 7. The Saints are tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed, giving up just 7 on the season. This is going to be a tough one, but I think that the Chiefs' offense is just too powerful. They've got too many weapons, too many guys firing on all cylinders, and too many ways that they can beat you offensively. And I think they're going to win 27-17. The next matchup we have is the 9-4 Cleveland Browns versus the 5-8 New York Football Giants. The Browns enter this game as the favorites, coming off one of their most exciting games in recent memory against the Baltimore Ravens, where they fell just short off of an amazing performance by Lamar Jackson. The Browns are looking to remain second place in the AFC North, while the Giants are trailing the Washington football team in the NFC East. The Browns are led by Nick Chubb, who has 881 rushing yards, averaging 5.9 yards per carries and 9 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt has 772 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns on the season, while Baker Mayfield has a QBR of 72.3. The Giants are led by Daniel Jones with a QBR of 64.5. Wayne Gallman has 561 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns, while Sterling Shepard has 416 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns, which leads all Giants receivers. Daniel Jones is the team's second leading rusher, which really gives you an indication of how much they miss Saquon Barkley this season. But they're also going to be missing Daniel Jones this game as Colt McCoy is going to be under center due to Daniel Jones nursing an injury. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubbs have combined for 1,653 yards on the ground and 14 touchdowns. And this is with Nick Chubb missing 4 games this season. I've got the Browns winning this one, 31-13. At the end of the day, just don't have much faith in Colt McCoy and the Browns. They really need to win this. I want to see them finally get in the playoffs and get that monkey off their back. The final game that we're going to discuss today is the matchup between the Steelers at 11-2 and the Bengals at 2-10-1. The Steelers are huge favorites in this, and you cannot blame them. The Steelers are looking to clinch the AFC North title and already have clinched the playoff berth. The Steelers are led by Ben Roethlisberger, who has a QBR of 63.6. James Conner, who has 663 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on the season, and Deontay Johnson with 69 receptions for 694 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. The key player for the Bengals are Joe Burrow, who has a QBR of 56.2, but his season's done. Joe Mixon, who has 428 yards in the season and 3 touchdowns, but he looks like he's not going to be playing anytime soon. Tyler Boyd has 78 receptions for 840 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. The Steelers lead the league with 27 drops this season. And speaking of drops, they have dropped their last 2 games that they played after starting 11-0. They've 0-2 in the last 2 games. The Steelers have won 14 of their previous 15 matchups in the series against the Bengals and have won 11 straight games against the Bengals. The Steelers lead the league in interceptions as a team as they have 17 and are tied for the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed as they are tied with the Saints. Given that I honestly don't even know if the Bengals know who they're going to throw out there at quarterback this upcoming later today, I'm rolling with the Steelers to win this one 35-3. It could be worse, but I'm just going to say 35-3. So that's it, folks. Again, a special shout out to the Packers, Chargers, and to the Buffalo Bills for taking care of business the last couple of days and getting their W's already for Week 15. Thank you for taking the time to watch my entire video. I really, really, really appreciate it. Definitely do leave feedback, and I hope that you enjoyed the content. I hope you learned something new. It's definitely always fun discussing our picks. Remember to just drop your predictions on what you think is going to take place today in today's games. And I'm definitely excited to communicate with you guys in the future. So thank you so much. Don't forget to press that like button and to subscribe. Until next time, guys.